Hi guys, it's Luke. I just wanted to take a second and thank you for listening to our first ever podcast. If you haven't already, go to the links in the channel homepage and follow us on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel for some exclusive content. Anyways, on to the show.
Welcome to Social Distance. It's our second episode. Everyone is up again.
Oh no.
Episode 2 with the 4-pack.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna survive
Geez.
this? Guys.
Day one.
Oh no, we're recording
About
at
2
night.
weeks.
Has it been 2 weeks since we last recorded?
No, it's only
No.
Not since we last
No, it
recorded.
hasn't. It's been a week.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
been
It's
it's
been
been
2
a week.
And
been
it is currently this
quarantined.
Tuesday.
Oh, it's been 2 weeks in
It's
quarantine.
been 2
okay.
weeks since
Yes.
the apocalypse began.
Yep.
and
It's been 2 weeks since we've had a reason to do this podcast in the beginning.
That is true. Okay, funny story for the audience. So my dad came home from work today. He pops out of his car. He's like, "Kids, come here." All me and my siblings run outside to see what he has. He opens up the passenger side door, grabs something out, pulls it out, hefts it above his shoulder. It's Charmin Ultra Soft, and he said, "We're saved." Screams it. I'm like, you are not
you're
wrong.
not
Because-
just saved. You are living in luxury.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
be-
Thriving right
because
there.
when I tell you that our family uses thin toilet paper, it's like quarter ply. It's the septic safe stuff. And we had one roll left. So
Oh.
bless heaven that he found it.
Oh my god.
He said he stole it from a grandma in Target. So
That's
I'm
a
just
little
going
too
to-
close to call.
Yeah, it was
One roll left.
touch and go there.
Okay.
Can I
Anyways,
just share with
actually-
you guys?
I was going to say, since we did our first episode, which had no real purpose except to get to know us, this episode might be a great time to talk a little bit about why we're doing the podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
Or just a goal we might have for the podcast. Having a podcast is something we'd probably be into no matter what, but
Yeah,
we did it
true.
now
We're nerds.
because of a certain reason.
Right.
I thought you were gonna say having a podcast is probably something we shouldn't be doing.
That also could be true.
We shouldn't be have
Just
been
because
given the
we like
authority
it
to do.
Not me.
It's also possible.
Yeah.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's what my mom always says.
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
Well, okay. I think our main reason for doing it is maybe not our main, but one of the strong reasons is we kind of want a vent for our thoughts, because we had this one like insane like group video call, and we were just like talking, going off with each other, and we're like, this could be a podcast. And then we were using a Marco Polo app, so it was all recorded. We went back and watched it, and we were like, yeah, there's content there. So the first 10 episodes of this podcast are basically based on a Marco Polo chat that we had at like 1 a.m. in the morning one night. So you guys are getting raw, unadulterated 4-pack.
I
True.
wouldn't say. I
I don't think that was the reason, though.
No, it wasn't
Yeah,
one of the main. It wasn't one of the main reasons. But
That's
I was
certainly
gonna
not the
say-
reason I'm here.
Yeah.
Because I was
It's-
asleep
I was
for that
going to
Marco
say that
Polo.
each of us are going to have, each of us are going to come up with a different answer, and it's going to be really funny because to
Okay.
each of us
Yeah.
that probably feels like the real reason that
that's true. That's true.
Well, I'll just say what I was thinking in that question, because it probably applies to all things. But just in general, having like this being a stamp on a timeline of our lives, of like, we didn't just kind of go through the quarantine, but we did something
Passively.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of, this is going to be a way to record what's going on, or it just kind of what we're thinking about during this time, or just kind of anything in general. We have more time, so I think that will help
Mhm.
us to make a better podcast than when we have our normal things and our normal responsibilities. So
Yeah,
more just kind of like the circumstances are right to create
yeah.
opportunity for a podcast.
Normal senior year,
Yes.
this would not be happening. Like
Definitely.
I can safely say, it's like soccer every single day, or like 4 days, not every single day, 4 days a week. This school, and then other stuff. It's just like, nope, I'm not podcasting. Get out of my life, podcast.
Evan, what's your reason?
Let's see. My reason for doing this. What is my reason for doing this?
I think we kind of just forced him to be here.
Yeah, we
That
kind
might
of
be
That was part of it. A lot of it was because you guys wanted me to.
Although
But
I feel
it
like
is-
Evan suggested it almost.
I
don't
like the
remember
idea
that.
of. I like the idea of, since we cannot meet up anymore and have our discussions, why not do it as a podcast so that other people can maybe be informed about the things that we're
Mhm.
talking about
Yeah.
and maybe glean some information from it.
I
Mhm.
guess that makes sense.
And I hate when people say this, but it's kind of true. Like, they can be a part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, I mean, if
So
They can
corny.
be.
we're gonna get an
No,
inbox set up at some point.
Here it is, guys. Here it is. We are the forum, and they are the people watching the forum.
Mm.
We are in ancient Greece right now.
Mhm.
Socratic discussion. They're the
Right.
outside circle.
I am
Yeah,
They are the
Socrates.
people listening
Oh, I
to.
don't know how I feel about that.
Don't assign
I'll
yourself.
be Archimedes.
Well, I mean,
Were
that
they
means
alive at the same
she's
time?
gonna die. No, they weren't.
I don't know if they were the lab. It seems like they would be, but who knows?
I'm the slave boy being taught intrinsic geometry.
Yes.
Well, anyways, we can kind of take that into our main topic of this podcast, which we'll get into in a second. Does anyone want to introduce that besides me? Or just start us
I
off?
think you can go, Claire. I
You
think
can just go for
yeah,
it.
you're really like doing a good job carrying it. This
wait,
point.
wait. Can I say my reason? I just forgot.
Oh,
Can I
yeah.
say my reason?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
No, it's fine. I was like, I don't know. I don't even know.
I'm
if
not
I
going to
have
make you
one.
say a reason if you don't have one, so I was just going to, but
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
I would say that mine was I was trying to figure out something that I could do, maybe we could do, that wouldn't just be something to keep me busy, that was productive, but that was somewhat of an encouragement or a resource for other kids my age,
Mhm.
Right. Yep.
Like,
and
serving both purposes. So
Mhm.
yeah.
that's
And
mine.
it doesn't even have to be like for people our age either. Like it could be for anybody, honestly.
No. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
I think it's also funny because I think we just kind of have a complex that, like, we're a little bit different than everyone else and we want people to understand us.
Oh no, I hate that about
we're
myself.
laughing because it's true.
Yeah. You know that part in The Office where Pam is like, I just think that if everyone got to know me, they would like me. And then she says that if ISIS got to know her, they would like her.
Oh
Or
no.
And that's kind of how I feel a lot of the time, especially
Should
about
that be our bio, our pod
being
bio?
homeschooled.
If ISIS got to know us, they would like us.
Yeah.
No.
ISIS
I
would
don't think it
definitely
should
not
be,
like
but-
us. They'd hate us. They'd probably
No.
kill us.
Yeah.
No, they would, but I'm. I also don't want to tempt. Yeah, let's not make it the bio at least. But
So anyways, probably deep down, that's why we started this.
Yeah.
speak for yourself, but also for everyone.
Right.
We want
Okay.
to talk today about the way that you can make quarantine better for yourself and for people around you, and just kind of in general to make it less about focusing on the bad parts of quarantine and the disappointment, and how you can turn that around into, I guess, how we can turn that around into being joyful and having good attitudes in the
Mhm.
midst of things that are not ideal. Kind of just talking about disappointment, because especially for seniors, that's kind of a big theme.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I think as of now, we're still going to get to do a lot of the things we were planning on doing. Probably just the timeline is going to look different. Like
Right.
we need to let go of our ideas of when things are going to happen or how they will happen in the same way. But yeah, kind of we're just going to talk about disappointment in the context of quarantine, but also just all of life.
All of life and how we can, approach it practically and from a biblical perspective, and And it's going to be really interesting, too, because I would say that we have optimists and non-optimists in this chat.
Yeah.
I don't want to say pessimists,
Wait,
maybe more realists.
who are those people? Because
I think
don't
that
know
we
who
should
that
let the
is.
listeners, I think we should let the
Okay,
listeners figure that
okay.
out as we
You
go.
can figure that out.
I guess
I do
I'll
think-
figure it out as we go as well.
It won't be difficult.
No, it won't. It won't.
That's
Yeah.
true. It won't be.
Yeah, so maybe I think something that might be important to explain, most people probably know this, but all 4 of us are high school seniors. And if you haven't been in high school for a while, the last couple months of senior year are kind of when everything that's good about senior year happens. There's like a lot of memories made, and you're finally wrapping up classes, and there's senior trips and spring sports and traditions and prom and graduation and all really big milestone events. And it's disappointing and hard to lose those, to think that things were going to go a certain way and not have them go a certain way. And I think I was talking to one of my youth leaders about this, and something that she brought up, as it was after a group discussion with the seniors, a Zoom call, much like this one. I know our church is high tech. And she was talking about how different people value ceremony differently. And I hadn't thought about that other people might not value prom and graduation and protocol. That's kind of like our homecoming for our school. The same way. How do you guys feel like you value those? How much were you guys looking forward to that in comparison to other things? Like, what does it mean for you to miss those?
I think for me, it's never really been high on my list until I would say like this January. I would say this January, I was like, oh, wait, this stuff is kind of cool. It maybe not as much with prom or protocol, but specifically with like senior trips, because that's something that is still potentially going to happen, but is either going to be shortened or made much more difficult because of the fact that we just don't know what's going on. Travel bans. We might still be in a state of lockdown at the end of June. And then once we get into July, well, for me, I have sports tryouts during that time. A lot of people are really aggressively preparing for college coming up in the fall. It's just June is the ideal time to actually get stuff done, as like just because it's chill.
So it's not as much about the like ceremony for you.
No, I would think it's more about the actual practicality and being with people. I don't necessarily need to be marching down an aisle at prom or whatever.
I was like,
marching down the aisle at prom.
I realized that after I said it, guys.
At the homeschool prom, you have to either not have a date or just marry them.
Pretty
on the
much.
spot.
Yep.
Those are the only options.
So that's where the ceremony comes in.
Yeah.
Go single or leave married.
Or you can go with your sibling.
That also works.
No. Sorry.
No.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I feel like at a homeschool prom, that's probably not that rare to find.
No. I know somebody who's planning on doing that,
That's
and
true.
it's. I'm telling her. I told her no, don't do it. I told her brother, no, don't do it.
Please don't go with your sibling, unless if you're twins.
I'm not at all condoning that, but I will say, if I had to pick, I wouldn't hate going with Treg.
Oh, shade on her other brother.
Hey, I have 5. It's not like. Well,
yeah, but you have 2 who are almost your age.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have 3
but
that
Treg
are
would just
significantly younger.
He's super photogenic, would just be quiet when I needed to be quiet. Know a good portion of the songs and just
I'm dying right now.
How did we get here? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this is weird.
This started as a horrible.
Okay.
Your question involved prom.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
For me, it's more about the FOMO than anything else, because it feels like senior prom is a thing you have to do. And especially, I already suffer from a little bit of that, not going to a traditional school. So I'm kind of just like, That's probably the worst part for me right now. But as far as I know, like I don't have reason to be super disappointed in that way yet because it's still on, just maybe later.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see if that's a big disappointment or not. I just don't really think about it.
Oh, speaking of that, I still actually haven't gotten my registration in. So, because I've been like, what's
Ooh.
going on with this?
No, we've actually emailed.
They
people in our
said
group
that
have
they
emailed
will
them.
probably give out refunds if it ends up being canceled. They're planning on rescheduling it
Yeah.
if they are not able to meet there, but
Oh, perfect.
they'll
Okay.
give out refunds as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that's something that most places like with these kind of things are doing, because I know that for us at least, that type of thing might be a little bit more expensive, but for other people where this is like it's across the nation, like just think about it. Usually, like schools do make a decent bit of money on this because like realistically, you just have like enough staff members to manage things, and that's all you have to pay for 4 hours. And when you have your entire school going there, each paying $50, $40, whatever, it's that's a profit. So that's still hurting the schools. I don't know. It's just like things to think about with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where were we going with that in the first place? The original question?
I was just
How does losing your senior year, in quotes,
Yes.
affect your mentality?
Mm-hmm.
right. I think and just like I was just specifically curious about how much like we value ceremony. I think that's really interesting.
Right.
For
Take on
me,
it.
it's not it's never been like a huge deal to have like a ceremony for things. Like that's not something that I'm really big on. I mean, I don't even want to get up on stage and do things in the first place. So for me, I like the idea of graduation, but I'm not going to be super bummed if it's not going to be like a super huge thing.
Right.
I would be disappointed if it was online. I saw some TikToks.
If it's an online graduation, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
Same.
I saw some TikToks of people
I might
having
not show
to
up.
choose between like online or in a parking lot as like a drive-in movie or like
that sounds kind of fun, actually. Like that could be
kind of fun though.
Really
like,
original.
50 years telling your
No, it would
grandkids,
not
I
be.
graduated in the parking lot.
Listen to
No,
who's
no,
saying that
no.
would be fun and original.
Exactly.
The boys.
A
The
drive.
boys are.
No, a drive-in. A drive-in.
A
would be
drive-in
cool.
graduation. Think
Think
this
about
is a
it.
once.
If
we're
I want to
the
go
only
to the drive-in, I'll go there to watch a movie.
I know,
not
but
get my
we're the
diploma.
only class, pretty much
It's
in
true,
history,
ever.
the only class in the history of the world that would be able to do that.
Except for the
Unless if
historical
there's
20s that we don't need to talk about.
No, but they didn't have drive-ins back then.
Oh, that's true.
So
Well,
we have the first
1920 they did.
opportunity.
No, they
in
didn't.
the-
I don't think.
I think they did.
They didn't do graduations in the drive-in in 1920.
Those things are too specific to happen in 1920, so they just didn't happen.
Yeah.
But we have an opportunity to make a very unique graduation that's never been done
That is
before.
true.
It's
And
true.
probably won't happen until
Yeah.
Did you guys just call it a
21.
drive-through graduation? You mean drive-in?
I meant to say drive-in.
Because I was like, wait, someone there
Wait,
was switched
You come
from
through.
outdoor.
You come through and your ropes, and everything.
Your
Pick up your diploma and leave.
You just grab
You go up. Hello, welcome to McDonald's. What can I get you? Yeah, I'd like my diploma, please. All right,
Every
that'll be
Christian
free at
school,
the
you
next
can
show.
we can match local high schools with fast food chains. Like every Christian school gets Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
True.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's
Spring
do
Lake
it.
Park, McDonald's.
Yeah, make a
Sorry.
PowerPoint of that.
I'm sorry that I just did that to them, but
Okay, but that also brings up a really another interesting point, though. It's like, what can we do, like in our own heads and minds, just kind of make the best of this? Because
Because the reality is you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, and
that's a great
I'm not
transitional
just
question,
trying to
Lucas.
Well, it was until you pointed it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
All right. Well,
but anyways, I'm not trying to make light of like other people's like plights, because like the people who are actually like dying from this. I'm just saying, I'm speaking specifically to kind of people in high school right now. It's like, how can we make this the best year it can be, keeping in mind that we are actually going to be disappointed. Like there are things that we will miss out on, that we won't get to experience to its fullest. And how can we console ourselves and move on?
And I will say, we should make this disclaimer. We should have made it at the beginning.
Yes.
We are not going to talk to people who are, or we're not primarily trying to talk to people who are actually in the middle of really tough situations now, like financial and actual health crises, because that's not usually the people I'm interacting with. I mean, I just feel like we don't have the authority to necessarily talk about that from experience.
By no means.
Right.
And so I
100%
think
agree.
I'm mainly thinking about and talking to people who are in safe homes and are mostly healthy and are really only struggling with the disappointment of having to do school online or be around people, being around only your family and no one else, like that type of disappointment.
And keep in mind, like a lot of the people we interact with are also kind of in this weird homeschool community. Maybe not weird, but in this niche homeschool community is a better word. So they're not necessarily as affected, but like I know like people who I'm not as close with, but I still like know and talk to, who are like crazy. Like, what am I doing? Because they're used to this normal high school environment where they're with hundreds, thousands of other people every day. And that's their every single day normal, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And they just don't know how to cope with being with the exact same 5 people all the time. It's
so
such
we're
a drastic
talking about
change.
situations that are difficult but not really hard or really like suffering. We're not talking about suffering. We're talking about things that are difficult.
Potentially
we acknowledge
difficult.
we acknowledge our privilege, and I think that the best way that we can acknowledge our privilege is to say that we are blessed to not be able to speak to those situations.
That's true.
The best that we can do right now is to speak to people who are in very similar situations to us, not necessarily kids our age, but somewhat, and just talking about disappointment in general, because we were talking before we even hit record about people who are in far worse situations than us, and we grieve for them. We do. But
okay,
that's been your disclaimer for the day.
To the program.
I will re-record a message before these podcasts and put it on it. but again, so I had a specific like thing in mind about this. So the way I've been dealing with this, or at least been trying to, because there have been days where I haven't been doing great with it. Again, coming from a privileged position, one way I've found to kind of think about and deal with it is that whenever I'm feeling like the specific disappointment, either about one thing or like a whole group of things, I'll try to examine the root cause of that. So I'll sit down, I'll either write it out or talk to myself, which is weird. I know, I do it. I think we all do. I think we all do. But that's my wishful thinking. And I just like, okay, why do I feel like this? Exactly why? And then either writing it out or kind of speaking it out, I'll kind of walk through it. And once I've found it, I'm able to be like, oh, this is why. It's because I was prideful in this one aspect of my life, and I wanted to be able to show it off at the very end. It's because I really enjoy being with this specific group of people, and I wanted to do this with them. And then once I do that, okay, I'm like, here, I found the reason. Is there a way I can still do it with them, even though my circumstances have changed? And
you ever turn that into prayer?
Yes, I do.
That sounds like a great way to.
What if he was just like, no, never?
No, I just talk to myself.
I just talk to myself. I do turn it into prayer. At the same time, though, it's just kind of like the process of speaking it out loud. and working through it, and then applying a problem solving logistical sense to it. Then after I feel like I found a solution, just asking God, like, okay, I think I found this. Is there a way that you want me to do it, or should I just keep going with how I'm doing it? And sometimes I'll feel led to do something else, or sometimes I'll feel fine just to keep going how I'm going.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was going to say kind of in the same path of that, and it does just involve a lot of prayer and thinking with a perspective greater than yourself. And I think usually harsh perspectives help me. Like, this might not be comforting or encouraging to a lot of people, but it helps me to not think of myself as much and to take myself out of the equation, and especially be thankful that things aren't worse for my family and for me, and to know that this was already in God's plan. We kind of talked about this before we were even thinking about recording this, but that God had already had this in all of our lives, and even just the opportunity to have something to look back on in a big kind of milestone, whether good or bad, that can be really helpful just in like seeing how God's worked and looking back on his faithfulness in the future. And so kind of just trying to have that perspective as I'm praying and as I'm thinking about these things, to like see how this is not just affecting this month for me, but how God is working in something in my whole life and in the world. Because I think it's helpful to realize that you don't have to complain or whine about small things, because there's so much bigger that God can be doing. I don't know. It's just helpful for me to take myself out of the situation a lot of times.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like stepping away from it so you can objectively examine the situation.
Yeah.
Evan, you want to go next?
Sure.
I'm still formulating.
I feel the same way that Claire does for the most part, about how, like, I wasn't necessarily surprised by the current situation that we're all in. And even though I had told myself for basically my whole life that at some point there's probably going to be hardships in the world that is going to be on a very global scale, it's still, even like just talking and thinking about it is not going to be the same as actually living in it.
Right, exactly.
So even though I am like at least somewhat prepared for it, there's still been surprises and stuff along those lines, but it's not anything that God didn't already know.
Right.
And throughout the last couple of weeks, I haven't been worried about anything. I haven't been upset that we're losing our senior year. And I feel like we don't really have that much of a right to be upset when there are people that are actually losing more important things,
definitely.
Things that'll actually matter. And not to say graduation and prom doesn't matter, but in the grand scheme of things, those have lesser value than like the rise of domestic abuse or suicide or things like that.
Right.
So I feel like our focus shouldn't necessarily be on ourselves and being like,
Exactly.
oh man, we get to lose all these, not we get to lose, but we're losing all these things.
Oh man, yes.
But
lose it.
But I think our
like that.
our focus should be more on how is God calling us to help those around us who are actually suffering.
Right. So
that's kind of where my mind has been the last week, just kind of praying and thinking about what are some things that I can feasibly do in this situation to help people.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys ever catch yourself in the middle of it, like thinking kind of selfishly or thinking kind of like small, like having a small perspective and thinking about yourself.
Yes.
And then what do you do when you
I think that there's a balance between, because I think that if we force ourselves into this complete like just like death to self, death to self, death to self, yes, that absolutely needs to happen. We need to look at things in perspective. But if we tell ourselves that it's completely and totally selfish to grieve something that we thought we were going to have, it's
Right.
just going to fester. And so I think that it's okay to grieve. It's 100% okay to be sad and to grieve what we lost, but as long as we are grieving it in perspective.
exactly?
And I think that
Right.
when we are respectful of that, when we are respectful of what other people are going through, and we acknowledge that this is a global crisis, that those things will naturally, and we allow those things to coexist, it will just naturally, like the Lord will work on our hearts to naturally kind of dissipate that feeling of loss and instead grow gratitude.
Right.
Yeah, within that perspective, like within a greater perspective, there's room for all kinds of emotions and wrestling with things and figuring things out. But it's just kind of, to me, it's comforting to know that there's more than just these like kind of right now big things that seem big, but that perspective helps me to realize that there's more.
Right. Like, what did you think was big last year? You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I would say that I don't remember exactly where I heard it, but there was I think it was in a talk that I heard once from a Christian author, but she said, because of who Jesus was and is, disappointment is not the end of my story. And that like has changed my life, because to be able to say, no matter how many, like, no matter if disappointment follows disappointment follows disappointment, we know that there is redemption. Like, there is redemption at the end of all of this, even if the rest of my life is disappointment. You know what I'm saying? And it won't be. Like, that's the thing. It's like there are smaller cycles of death and redemption even within our lives. And so I think that, yes, allowing like smaller joys in my life day to day to coexist with global crisis, to combat anxiety with gratitude, to allow ourselves to hold the joy and the sorrow at the same time, and also just to trust that the disappointment is not the end.
Yep.
Because it isn't.
Well, and because as Christians, we have an answer for if this was just total chaos and much, much worse than it actually is. But the thing is, we have been given gifts of really good things from quarantine so far. And not everyone is given that, obviously. But for a lot of people in America, where like life is just at a pace that's insane, like just a small benefit from something that could be so much worse is just rest for everyone. And I felt that for me.
Okay, I've been meaning to ask like all of you guys this throughout this whole thing so far. How do you think like that this whole stay at home, this whole quarantine thing is like really affecting the American populace as far as the kind of just extraordinary busyness that has been taking prevalence in the maybe not the past several years, but like the past like 20 years or something like that, with the rise of social media and like
I probably shouldn't have even gone there,
everything.
because this is going to be a big thing for another episode, because of a book that we're reading right now. Aaliyah and I are reading it, and just kind of, it's a lot. It is a culmination of a lot of things. So maybe that could be a teaser. What were you going to say, Aaliyah, though?
I was going to say, not to be dramatic, but I felt like I got my soul back today.
Really?
Like I'm serious. It was like a moment where I was like, I feel like I caught up. Like, it caught up with how fast I've been running for so long. And it was just like, it was a reminder of like what we've been saying, that like in the midst of horrible loss and disappointment, not my horrible loss, global horrible loss and my disappointment, there's still grace that we can, I think like it's a picture of the bigger redemption story, that there's there's gifts even in
Right.
what we would consider to be really bad stuff.
Even in the terribleness, there is always things you can find to the positive, even if it's just this tiny little minute thing. You can't see my fingers, but they're very close together right now, that could help us just to, I don't know, just to stay positive.
Yeah.
I
And those
was
things,
trying to figure out what the heck you were talking.
yeah, what that meant.
And then it clicked. Okay, but I guess you're right. We should save that for maybe our third episode. I don't know. Maybe we record 2 episodes tonight, guys, because I kind of want to talk about this.
All things.
We're not done with our books yet, though. That was the whole point.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true. We can't
Okay.
talk about it now.
Okay.
We could finish the books and then record again when we're done.
The boys can just stay on Zoom until like 3, and then we'll
Yeah.
pod back in.
Me and Ev are chilling after this, so
They're quick chapters. We could do it.
yeah.
Yeah. Big print.
Mm-hmm.
Flowing writing style. Fluid? I don't know. What?
Flowing fluid.
Well, maybe we should just close with that. Even if we didn't get all of our thoughts totally out there today, I'm sure we'll come back around.
Right.
And maybe we can just
it's so closely related to.
It really is.
It ties in with a lot of things.
Right. They'll come out at some point.
I was taking notes because you guys are really wise.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say we could close with one idea that we've had or something we've done over quarantine that's made us happy.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's always joy in Christ, but there ain't always happiness.
Yeah, this is not like what you've done to be more productive and a better person, like how many languages you've learned over the quarantine or how much reading you've done. Something that's
4
actually
languages already.
How much cleaning?
Yeah.
Cleaning does make me happy, though.
That's true, me too. But
cleaning is refreshing.
Okay. One thing I've done that I'm happy I got done is, so my family's currently in the process of moving. So I've actually had a lot of time to get prepared to leave the place that I'm currently recording this in. So new acoustics in like 3 weeks, guys. You never know. It'll be interesting.
Fun.
Wow. I'm sure that feels great, though. That's like a totally different type of happiness.
Yeah.
Of like getting things done.
It's like an anticipation of the unknown type of happiness.
That was a mean wow. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was like, wow.
Well, thank you for apologizing.
I am actually, I'm invested. I'm invested in your move.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You should come over and help me pack sometime.
Nope.
6 feet away.
There are multiple reasons why I just said nope. Claire. What are you doing to be happy?
It's a great question. Honestly, I'm not even really sure, but I have been very happy through the last couple of days. And I think it's just kind of a culmination of doing a couple of different things that are like hobbies for me.
Embroidery.
And not in the sort of way where I feel bad when I don't do them, but just I kind of naturally go towards them. And I've been actually going through a book. Like I actually am reading it, and it's not a school book. It's not like an educational book. It's just a book.
Wow.
And that's been really fun.
Guys, this is big for Claire.
I know.
It's always educational or it's always school.
All of the books I read are educational in some ways. I'm not reading Twilight, but like,
Twilight is the best. Kidding.
No.
I hate it.
Gosh.
It sucks.
You read it?
I've read all 3 of them and watched the
No,
movies.
Luke.
They're so bad.
I never knew this. Darn it.
It was a dark time in his life.
Obviously.
Ages 0 to 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I read it when I was like 13, actually. So.
I'm so sorry. Okay, in my brain I was like, how old is -1 year, but I forgot that you are 17.
Thanks a lot. Imagine
I'm
not being
so
an
sorry. Oh no.
Imagine getting that extra 500 bonus from the government.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Except
it's
I don't
it's taxpayers. It's taxpayers if you file taxes.
Yeah, and you guys, you want to know a big oof? Because I didn't work at the state fair this year, and I didn't. So like I had income.
Taxpayer.
Yeah, so I got income tax like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But because I didn't work at, I could have worked at the state fair this year and made 4 times as much because of my check.
Oof.
Yeah.
But I
Ooh.
didn't, and so
Ooh.
I get nothing.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't even know how. Okay, I don't even know how it's gonna work though, because they said it's supposed to be direct deposited. So I'm thinking, well, am I still gonna get it? Because like I haven't filed taxes for this year yet, but my employer has my tax withholdings, so I'm assuming I'm gonna get it. But I don't know.
Okay. We can update each other next time.
If I come into the next in 3 weeks, when I move to this podcast with new acoustics and $2,000 richer, $1,000 richer, whatever it is, you guys will know about it because my microphone will sound so much better.
I think about $1,200.
It's
there's
$1,000 to $1,500 basically.
There's ranges of your income and how much you get. It's less money the more income you make, and then if you make a certain amount, like I think 90,000 a year, then you don't get any.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's
significantly less than that, so don't worry.
Yeah, there's also a like amount for your children.
Right. So the answer is stimulus checks make Luke happy.
Oh my God, yes.
Stimulus checks do not
That was a
make,
roundabout way, but
Yeah.
do not make the society happy in the long run, though.
It is true.
Does
I
not
would
make
say-
the national debt happy.
I
no,
mean,
don't even
it's-
get me started.
Let's
You guys
add
seem
another
like-
$2 trillion to the national debt. Why don't we? Although the thing is, it's pretty much all electronic.
That's true.
There's not that much money printed. We don't have enough resources for that.
Can I please get a waffle? Can I say what makes me happy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with what makes me happy now.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Are you trying to say what
Get up,
makes you
please.
happy?
Get a waffle.
Wait, have you already gone? I don't remember if you won.
No.
Okay,
just
then go. No, you go.
No, now I'm having a crisis. Just go.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say. I didn't mean to steal your spot.
I'm crying. Okay. Evan, just go.
If you have something to say, please go, because I didn't really have anything.
Okay. I don't know what
You have
makes
to
me
answer
more.
these questions.
Yeah, you guys don't have to answer. You don't have anything.
It would be a good closing
Nothing
thing if
makes
you have
me
something
happy.
in mind. But
You
other
you
than that-
think that the reason that I'm upset is because I kept getting cut off, but the real reason I'm upset is because Evan didn't interpret my Vine speak. That when I said, "Can I please get a waffle?" what I meant was, I'd like to share my piece. Okay.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of things, but for me, something that's really fun to do is to plan. Even if I don't get it all done, I love to know that even though I can't go places and do things and see people, I have lots of fun things to do. So I've been like making lists,
Ooh.
and making lists is really fun for me. It gives me a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Books I can read, movies I can watch, podcasts I can listen to. I'm thinking about doing a spirit week for my family. We'll
Ooh.
update.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, so we'll see. But mine is making lists and planning.
Cute.
Not in the sense that I do them, in the sense that I like making lists.
They're way more fun if there's no pressure. to
Right.
actually do them.
Yeah.
Okay, Evan, last one. Wrap us up. Bring us home.
All right. I'd say being able to focus on the things that I enjoy doing
Oh yeah.
and
that's a
not
big one.
not having to be forced to have a super restricting schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Like having time to actually learn the guitar, which I mentioned last week, and being able to progress with that, and being able to get back into learning Greek because I was skipping on that. Mainly those two things. Being able to focus a lot on music and the emotion behind it, and not just the pattern of it, but actually being able to interpret the meaning of the composer.
Yeah.
It's been a fun thing to learn and demonstrate.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess none of those are helpful for an audience who needs things to do because
It's
they're
true.
really specific. to
Pick
who
up an
you are.
instrument, seriously.
You have to be
If you have a
talented.
piano in your house and you don't play
Pick
the
it up.
piano,
Pick it
pick
up.
up
That's
pick up the
actually-
piano.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Literally lift
And I'm
it.
gonna say everybody can enjoy a direct deposit check. So just, I mean,
You can buy an instrument with your direct deposit check.
ooh, I like that.
Oh, bringing it full circle.
Well, I don't suggest doing that. I would suggest buying something that would actually benefit you if you were
Invest
in
in
financial
Texas
struggle.
Roadhouse. Invest in Texas Roadhouse. Buy those so high.
Invest in Amazon.
Okay. Well, we might have to end this.
Okay, it's time
All
to
right.
go, guys.
Yeah.
Let's cut off the boys.
Yes.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
listening to
actually
Social
listening.
Distance.
It was
If you
fun.
made
Check
it all
out the
the
show
way,
notes if we have any.
You're a real one.
Yeah.
You're probably from Sweden.
Yeah, you are.
Probably from Sweden.
Thank you, Sweden 5%.
Thank you,
Felix,
Sweden.
shout out.
It's
Anyways,
probably him.
okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Goodbye.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Have a good week.